Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. So we're starting the 14th chapter today. And the 14th chapter is titled as The Three Modes of Material Nature. So this doesn't start with a question. The 14th chapter doesn't start with the question. Krishna continues to talk out of his own impetus. The 13th chapter ended with the Jnana Chakshu section, right? Where Krishna was asking us to have a vision of understanding our true nature. That how it's the modes that bring about bondage. Even though it's the soul that desires, but the modes are ones that bring the bondage. Just 1 minute. Okay, so what we will do today is, but before we go into the chapter, we'll understand a bit what exactly is these modes of nature. What is it that Krishna is highlighting here? Okay. So these three modes of material nature, they're like three subtle forces that shape the interaction between consciousness and matter. Right? So soul is spiritual consciousness. Soul is spiritual and conscious, whereas matter is material and unconscious. Okay? So when we come to this material world, we are subjected to a life which is alien for us, which is an alien atmosphere for us, because we are captured in this material body. Okay? Soul is spiritual, so it needs to take an appropriate material dress when it comes to the material world to interact with it. Similar to the way people go out in the outer space, they need to wear a proper spacesuit to interact with the environment there. And this material body that we get it comprises of gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether, and then also subtle elements: mano, buddhi, rahankar, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Right? So the material world, it's called Maya. So the Maya means, Prabhupada says, it's that which is not. Okay. So that means that we are assigning a property to an object which is not there in it. Okay. So thinking of an object which it is not, for example, that way to look at it. So for example, when we are in a desert, we see a mirage. So a person may think it's water in the desert. It's not that the water or the desert is not a reality, but seeing the water in a desert when the water is not present there is an illusion. Similarly, thinking of something that is material, which is temporary, to be spiritual. To be spiritual is sorry, to something that is material. Thinking of something that is material, temporary. To be spiritual, eternal, is an illusion or Maya. So both material and spiritual are real, but to ascribe the property of one to the other is an illusion. Right? So, uh, so the way the hierarchy is, as I put in the picture here, there is Maya, and then there is the modes of nature, and then that's our mind. So it affects our mind, that right. So that's the Maya, the modes, and the mind. They form a hierarchy. That's a chain of command. And you have seen this picture in the Bhagavad Gita. Put the picture there, where there are three female personalities holding ropes, right? Uh, so they are the modes. Okay. So Maya Devi acts through these three females on our mind. So that's the way to understand it. So when we say something is falling in Maya, like Prabhupada says, or he's in Maya or something, it means that the person's mind is deluded, is deluding the person, right? It's not that there is some place called Maya and the person is falling in it or something. So mind is a subtle material energy of Krishna, which is a part of the subtle energy. So Maya is also another energy of Krishna. It's a powerful demigoddess who's a person. She's not a subtle matter, but a conscious living being. So she's also a devotee of the Lord. Her service to Krishna is to purify us by tempting us in the wrong direction to make us realize the futility of succumbing to the wrong temptations. It's very much like our teacher giving us a multiple choice question. The purpose of the teacher to give us a multiple choice question is not that we fail in the exam, but the purpose is so that we become utmost sure that this is the right answer. Even if you give me 4 wrong answers, I know which one is the exact right answer. So similarly, Maya keeps testing us till we 100% become sure, no, this is the thing I want. Whatever you give me, Maya, I don't want it. So all the temptations go away. That's the pure state of a devotee. Right? So Maya acts upon us through these 3 modes of material nature. Right? So the 3 modes are goodness, passion, and ignorance. Sattva, Rajas, Tama. So uh, so the goodness covers us in a certain way and makes us desirable of certain things. In a mode of goodness, I can think of myself as being an intellectual, a scholar. Um, I can impress people. When people praise me, I feel wonderful. In the mode of passion, I may start thinking that, I'm young, I need to enjoy this, and so forth. Whereas when I'm in ignorance, I just think that my body is so tired, I just need to sleep. So the modes shape our perception of who we are and what we think is desirable in this world. Okay. Another way Prabhupada puts this Maya, the working of Maya, is in the principle of avaranatmika and prakshepatmika. This is from one of the purports. So yes, this is something coming from Prabhupada's purport in Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, where Prabhupada is saying that Maya has 2 phases of activities. One is called prakshepatmika and the other is called avaranatmika. Avaranatmika means covering and prakshepatmika means pulling down. Okay, so that's another classification. Okay, so each mode brings about a different kind of covering on us. Avarana, right? Avarana means a covering, and a different kind of throwing into the material existence. That's prakshepa. So like throwing is like thrown out of a room because I'm not in resonance with the environment of the room. So I got thrown out of that room. So uh, so when a person is in goodness, when he or she is covered in goodness, there's a particular kind of self-conception, which is not necessarily enlightenment or spiritual. If a person is in a mode of goodness and guided by scriptures, and he thinks that he's the servant of God, that's transcendental goodness. But then goodness, when it is not necessarily God-loving, that can still have a material conception that I'm an intellectual, getting awards, recognition, is the prakshepatmika shakti. So avaranatmika makes us forget, and prakshepatmika makes us think what is desirable for me. So hope you understand the difference between both of them. So avaranatmika and prakshepatmika are intrinsic within each mode. Right? So each mode creates an avarana, covering, and each mode gives us a identification. Right? So, or in a simple way, if I have to tell you, avaranatmika means that makes us we forget that we are servants of Krishna. Right? And prakshepatmika means we get another identity. I'm an Indian. I'm a male. I'm a scientist. I'm an engineer. So on and so forth. So uh, soul is covered by the mind. Mind dilutes the soul through the temptations. Mind is influenced by the modes. The modes are under the control of Maya Devi, and she's under the control of Krishna. If we surrender to Krishna, then we become free from the troubles of our mind. Krishna instructs Maya, and she stops tempting and alluring us, and our mind stops pestering us. That is why Krishna instructs us to surrender to him and go beyond the influence of Maya. Right? Which verse does Krishna say that in? Anybody remembers it? It's a very famous verse. You might have memorized it. It comes in the 7th chapter. It's a very famous verse. Please. Daivi hai Isha. Anybody remembers if I give a hint? Can you all hear me?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, you can hear me. Okay, that's good. I thought I'm not audible. Yeah, so you should have memorized, all of you must have memorized that verse. Daivi Aisha Gunamai Mammaya Durattaye Mameva Ye Prapadyante Maya Metam Tarantite. That's the verse where I think it's, I'll open it up for you also. I think it's, sorry, it's 7:14. 7:14? I think so, 7:14. Yeah. The purpose of Bhakti Sastri is that you can become so strong that if anybody even comes as a, he comes to and opposes what is being said in the scriptures or what Prabhupada is saying, we all could stand up and defend it. We don't have to fight anybody, we at least should have some proof to counter anybody's statement. So when when we are being told that our mind is under the control of these modes and the modes are under control of Maya and Maya is under the control of Krishna, that is how we tell people that, hey, that's how Krishna, by praying to Krishna, we can come out of this Maya. By my own efforts, we cannot come out of Maya. So let me share this. So it's 7:14. Daivi hai shagunamai mammaya durattaya mamevai prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered to me can easily cross beyond it. So, and how do they cross beyond it? It's not like I cross beyond it. Is that Krishna becomes merciful on me. So uh, when I become devoted to Krishna and Krishna sees my sincerity and my effort, Krishna then orders Maya Devi, don't disturb this person anymore. And then Maya stops disturbing, the modes pull back, they don't disturb us, our mind becomes subdued, and then we are fully, we are able to be in our right nature of being a servant of Krishna. So that's the way it works. 7:14, please memorize the verse. We all should know that verse. So that's what modes of nature are. Okay. So, I think I have a couple of pictures in here. Oh, I put a couple of pictures. Okay. So probably I'll tell you now. So okay. So the three modes, how do they affect us? So in the last slide, I told you what is Maya. Now let's see the three modes. How do they affect us? They so the modes shape our perception and the response towards the world. Okay. So how is this external world perceived by me? And then based on that perception, we have certain emotion which leads to certain actions. Okay. So in the first picture on your left, you see that there are three people sitting in a bus. Okay. So now one of them is reading a book, the other is looking at a phone, and the third is sleeping. Okay. And the bus is going through it's a beautiful road. There are beautiful forests on both the sides. So the bus bumps and or kind of takes a jerk for a minute, and the guy reading the book looks up. Okay. And he sees a serene forest with the soothing greenery. And that guy thinks, oh, it's so nice. If I can I can sit under a tree and assimilate the wisdom of this book. It's so beautiful, right? And then there is this guy, you know, uh, somebody who's in tamas, okay, let's say who's in ignorance, right? So Oh no, let's say, yeah. So yeah, so the guy in the tamas is the one who's okay, he's you can say that he's watching a movie on his mobile phone. Okay. So when the bus bumps, he sees the same view as the sattva person. But then he says, "Oh, wish I could just dance and frolic and romanticize in this forest." Right? So no, no, sorry, not that Tom. Sorry, that is the uh,
Rajoguna, right?
that's a Rajo. Sorry, yes, I confused that. Sorry. So Rajoguna is the one who's watching a video on his mobile phone, and then that person, he when he looks out, he's thinking about a lot of more activity, frolicking, dancing, romanticizing. Probably he wishing that, oh, my girlfriend would have been here and so forth. So that's the uh, Rajas, and the Tamasic one, who is the one who's sleeping in there. Okay, and when again the bus takes a jerk, he wakes up. It's so peaceful. It's so nice. Wish I could go and lie down here and sleep peacefully. So it's this exact same forest, exact same view, but three different perceptions. So that's how these gunas, they affect our perceptions. So people and different gunas will have uh, different way they'll perceive it different way. Similarly, let's in the next second picture, there is this. Let's say there are three men. They're watching a movie in the cinema hall, and there a fire breaks out. So the one who's in tamas, he will just become terrified and he'll freeze, not knowing what to do. He'll just freeze. Then there's the guy who's in rajas. He will run to the exit door and he'll try to, just save himself. And the guy who's in sattva, he will look for a fire extinguisher and he'll attempt to extinguish the fire. Right? So what the example shows is that in tamas, in ignorance, there is in tamas, that is ignorance, there is neither action nor reflection. Okay, the person is neither doing any action, neither introspection nor reflection. It's just a frozen panic state. In passion, there is an instinctive action, but without much thought. There's not much thought around it. Whereas in goodness, there is action also, and there is introspection and reflection also. So the mode of goodness is the most beneficial to our well-being, not only spiritually, but also materially. Okay. So, uh, yeah. Uh, there's action and reflection. That's what I said. Yeah, action and reflection both. So yes, mode of goodness is most beneficial for our well-being. And that's why Prabhupada, and actually even in a spiritual life, we all would need to come to the mode of goodness before we can start, you know, having some clarity around this spiritual life, about my spiritual goals, about my spiritual nature. We have to come to the mode of goodness first, and that's what Prabhupada says in the Nectar of Instruction preface. That once we come to the mode of goodness, then things become clear how we'll move forward to. So mode of goodness is where we want to come, but that's not the stopping point for us. We have to go beyond that to transcendental goodness, right? So and then somebody can ask, okay, then what defines these modes? Like what defined that one person saw it as a place where he could sit down and assimilate knowledge, the other person saw that as a place where he could just have fun, the other one just thought, I'll go and see. So how was that defined? So somebody can say that was defined by our previous karma. Okay, but not in entirety. That's not the entire thing. Besides karma, the modes are also dependent on the kind of choices we make, the association we keep, the culture we expose ourselves to, kind of books we read, kind of food we eat, thoughts we cultivate, etc. Okay. So we can shape the modes based on what we decide to choose again and again. Okay. So if you choose the same thing again and again, the impression of that mode will become deeper. Okay. So just imagine that, one afternoon I've taken my lunch. It's a heavy lunch. Then I go to a room to study, but in that room everybody is sleeping. Right now I can sit down and try to study, but there's a very good chance I'll not be able to study. I'll also fall asleep. Right. So so the environment, the posture, everything will induce me to sleep. But on the other hand, if I eat less and then I go to a library where everybody is studying seriously for an exam, then we will also be affected by the environment and we might feel inspired to study. Right? So choosing our circumstances, we choose either we succumb to ignorance or we go towards goodness. Right? So the choices will so we make will on a regular basis will strengthen a particular mood. Right? If we always choose to sleep in the afternoon, that will become a habit for us in the long run. On the other hand, if we avoid sleeping in the afternoon, we will not even miss it throughout. We'll just probably live our whole life without even thinking that I'd sleep in the afternoon. Right? So cultivating mode of goodness becomes very easy by following spiritual practices of Krishna consciousness. So that is the brilliance of Prabhupada, that he gave us a practical lifestyle by which we can come into the mode of goodness. So Prabhupada is also holding our hand and taking us from wherever I am, ignorance, passion, to goodness. But then he's also taking us through his books to transcendental goodness, to Krishna. So we should be very thankful to Prabhupada for giving us these books. So he's given us these 4 regulatory principles, this chanting, and all these other habits, trying to be introspective and inculcate a simple living and high thinking kind of a lifestyle. So it makes very easy for us to practice spiritual life. And so regularly choosing in something in a mode of goodness, it purifies our, and then it takes us beyond the material existence. Okay. What is the next slide I have? Okay, the summary chart. Yes. So this is about the material, the 3 modes of nature. Just one more point. So in the 7th chapter, Krishna had said that, what was that? Ye chaiva satvika bhava rajasas tamasasye mata evin tan vidhi natvam teshu te mai. That he's saying that it's coming from Krishna, the modes of nature. He's saying ye chaiva satvika bhava rajasas tamasasye mata eviti. It's coming from me. But then Krishna in the 13th chapter, he says that it's coming from the from the material nature. Prakritim purusham chaiva vidhi anadhyu bhavapi vikarams cha gunans chaiva vidhi prakriti sambhavan. So prakriti sambhavan, there he says that it's coming from the material nature. So that sounds a bit different, that, oh, in one case you're saying it's coming from Krishna, the other you're saying it's coming from material nature. So what does that mean? Is that both of them are true. So there are different levels of causation, right? Just like you can say that a child is coming from the parents, but you can also say the child comes from Krishna. Ye Bhagwan ki deen hai, in Hindi we say, right? This is God's gift. So ultimate cause and the immediate cause, they are not contradictory, but they're complementary to each other. So in the 7th chapter, the focus was for Krishna to show it as his own energy. So the purpose was to show connection to Krishna. That was more of the focus of 7th chapter. But in the 13th chapter, it's more of a intellectual frame of analysis, right? So everything is being connected to Purusha and Prakriti. Right? So the context is slightly different. That's why we see that it's same thing. It's coming from Maya, but it's also coming from Krishna, because Maya is coming from Krishna. Okay, so that's about the modes of nature. I hope I have given some clarity. If any thoughts, any comments, please. It's a good time to bring up.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
I had a quick question. Like even when we're practicing Krishna consciousness, and we give up certain things, but sometimes we have desire for that. Is that still Maya playing with us?
So when you have given up something, still you have desire for it.
Yeah, like for instance, tea or coffee,
Hmm.
Yeah,
so so Maya will keep on, yes, that's Maya doing it. We have to understand that Maya will keep testing us till it doesn't become 100% sure that uh, that we really want Krishna. Okay, and so Maya will keep doing that, right? So, but then some of our desires can be very deep rooted also. As long as we are taking the medicine, it will work. So we should have that assurance, right? So there are two things. One question is, are we taking the medicine properly? And the other thing is that we could be unknowingly triggering those desires, right? Just like when you have a rash on your skin, you go to a doctor, the doctor says, okay, you put this cream and don't touch your rash. But you are putting the cream, but then you're scratching the rash also. Obviously, it's going to take a longer time to be treated. So what I'm saying is so there can be many different angles to look at it. That your desires are still there. It could be because it's very deep rooted. So we just be content. We keep doing what Krishna has told us, and they will eventually go away. And another aspect could be that, are you unknowingly or knowingly kind of igniting those desires now and then again? So you might have to rearrange your environment and avoid some things which might be causing that desire to show up again. So it could be a couple of points, but yeah, still it's Maya coming to us. Yeah. Did
thank
that
you,
make
Prabhuji.
sense? Okay.
Yeah, yes,
Welcome.
it does. It does. I mean, what you said important was, knowingly, unknowingly, you could be causing that issue for yourself, like, that requires coffee or tea, like
Yeah.
not getting enough rest, for instance.
Yeah. Yeah. Could be. Yeah, that could be a way to look at it too.
Okay,
And
thank you, Prabhuji.
yeah, another way you can look at it is that our goal is not to avoid temptations in Bhakt. Our goal is to connect with Krishna. Look at that also. And sometimes what happens is that I get so involved in avoiding temptations that I forget the bigger goal. That's the bigger goal being connecting with Krishna. So, yes, that's fine. I have to resist temptations, but don't become extremely morose or feeling guilty that, oh my God, I can't give up these desires. I'm useless. I can't do bhakti. That's not what Krishna wants. Krishna says this in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, right? Jato Shraddha Mat Kathasu, that verse, 11th canto, 20th chapter, verse number 27 and 28. That, some people, some of my devotees, they know that this is wrong, but they still cannot give it up. These things are so deeply rooted. So Krishna says, don't worry, you just keep doing what I have told you. So the goal is not to remove these temptations. The goal is to connect with Krishna also. So just balance these thoughts in your mind also.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
You're welcome. Anything else? Okay. Everything clear about modes, where they are coming from, what they are, how they affect us. If that is done, then we can probably get on to the chapter. Okay. So the 14th chapter, as I said, the three modes of nature, right? So if somebody, coming out of the modes of nature, it's by hearing, as Prabhupada has told us. Hearing is the essence, right? Madguna Shruti Matrena Mai Sarve Guhashaya Mano Gatir Avichena Yatho Gangha Basho Ambudha. That Shruti Matrena, the verse is saying Shruti Matrena. It's a verse from the 3rd canto, and it's Kapila Muni talking to Devahuti, and he's saying that Madguna Shruti Matrena. Madguna means he's referring to himself because he's Krishna himself. Madguna Shruti Matrina. Just by hearing about me, about my time, about my pastimes, about my qualities, your mind will become like the Ganga, that it will run towards the ocean non-stop. So uh, that's the that's the kind of a lakshan of, let's say, lakshanam bhakti yoga. So that's how you identify how much I have progressed in bhakti. How much have I been able to resist these material modes of nature? That will be defined by our desire to hear. So that's the way to also understand this. That when we hear more and more, and you desire to hear more and more, automatically these modes will subside, and you can easily. It's a very quantified a way to quantify our bhakti process. Right? Also, another thing to understand about this chapter is that this chapter is teaching us how to be introspective. So unless there is a deeper reflection, absorption, introspection, growth in spiritual life doesn't happen. One of the biggest problems people face in spiritual life is that they are not doing a lot of reflection, absorption, or introspection. They have fallen into a comfortable position, and they're okay. Oh, no, no, I'm doing my bhakti, I do my chanting. Okay, that's good thing you're doing. But there has to be some reflection, some introspection. And that's what Krishna is asking us to do here. When he's telling about these different modes, about telling us that how, yeah, this world looks beautiful, but at the end of the day, the foundation is these 8 elements. You know? Bhumi, Rapo, Nalo, Vayu, Khamano, Buddhi, Revacha, Ahankar, Ityamte. Then you start thinking, that, hey, this thing looks beautiful. I hate this thing. But then they both are made of the exact same thing. So what's going on here? So you're introspective. We are introspective. Right? So that's the biggest problem we face in spiritual life, that we don't introspect. People just fall in a standard, and then they think, oh, this is good enough for me. I don't need anything else. That is why Prabhupada stressed a lot on reading his books, because that kind of just opens us up. Nowadays, we don't get time to reflect, introspect. 50 years ago, there is this concept called ethereal boredom, where 50 years ago, when people would get bored, they would stay bored because they didn't have anything to get rid of that boredom. They didn't have smartphones or a laptop or something of that sort. So in those moments when those people were bored, they would just start think. They had time to reflect. So in that boredom, people would grow. But now when we get bored, we have titillation at our hands, this stimulation at our hands, right? So being introspective, understanding that how these modes are working, how this world has been designed and made, that helps us come enhance in our bhakti process. Okay.
Haribol.
Haribol, Prabhu.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, and I thought of it a while ago, is that I got into this movement. There's always something going on and always something to do. When I first joined, it was a lot different than it is now. It was just a bunch of Americans. They were all mesmerized by everything that they learned. They were all so much more intelligent than me. They all had so many wonderful things to say. And I joined in 72, so a lot of them weren't that much far ahead of me, but still, just looking at myself, I don't know about everyone else, but because I just captured this today, actually, after speaking with you, I realized, I'm on a treadmill. This Krishna consciousness put me on a treadmill. I had to do devotional service. When I came to Gita Nagari, I was crawling on the ground day in and day out, planting strawberries and potatoes, and I loved it. It was great. Oh no, there's nothing to complain about. But I was doing all this, and when would I hear the books? Well, I'd hear the books at class. I'd hear it in the evening. But if I was working and I did all the things that I did, I hardly had time to read. Okay, And so when did I hear the Bhagavad Gita? I would hear it in classes, but I never heard the Bhagavad Gita one sloka after another in a continuous fashion. In 50 years, I did not hear it in a continuous flow as a conversation. I heard about it, I knew about it, and I loved 714. I loved 1010. You know, I certain ones I really loved them. 241. You know, I love certain ones, but I never ever sat and did the continuity, da 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 da, heard the conversation, and just gave a chapter a chance. You know, I never did. I never did in 50 years. And finally now, I'm so excited to read. I've always been reading though. I've always read books. All these books I've always read, but I never read the Bhagavad Gita or any of like that in one sitting. I'm doing it in one sitting now by doing this with you weekly. I'm progressively doing something here, and I'm seeing so much more amazing information. How and Prabhupada said, if you study these books, you become purified enough to initiate others while I'm here on the planet. That's what he told a friend of mine. He said he was so excited when he first heard that the devotees were studying these books. Oh, he said they're going to be so purified that they'll be able to purify, to chant, to initiate while I'm on the planet. I mean, this is amazing, and I'm catching up on it here, and I'm glad I'm doing it at least before the end of my life. You know, at least I'm getting to reflect on it now. I am being so much more reflective. I've always been a doer. I've always been on the treadmill of doing devotional service. I'm always trying to fine tune and perfect this art of serving Prabhupada's desires. But part of this picture is what you said. You know, you have to think and reflect. I wasn't thinking and reflecting on my own personalization as much as I was just thinking and reflecting, how could I serve him more? But you know, what's happening here as the pendulum swings, Krishna says, you've served a lot. You know, each one of us has a different chapter of life or a different story to tell. But my chapter is Krishna wants me to slow down and smell the roses a little bit, you know, slow down and listen to what I got to say. You know, really listen to what I've got to say now. Prabhupada has cleaned you up enough so that when you hear it, it will tantalize you. If you hear it, it will make you want to be, reflective. It makes you want to think. You know, I can't believe how many times I've listened to each one of these chapters in the whole week coming up to Wednesday. How many times, you know, I've heard this chapter and read this chapter 5 or 6 times, and I have my thing that's what do you call it? The book where it's someone reads it, the audio book. And that's all I listen. What's this week? 14? That's all I'm going to hear. I don't care about 13 or 15. I'm doing 14 all week long. And I might hear it at least twice a day. If it's a short chapter, it's you know, I'll be here many, many, many times. So this is a fact that, you know, reading these books, you know, and really trying to take the time to read them, it's so important. And I've read them all, but now I've taken a different posture. And so I'm trying to share it with the devotees that maybe I should be a little embarrassed that I'm not that scholarly, that intense about it. But in other ways, I'm really, I didn't waste my time, but there was so much to do. You know, you don't waste your time. I mean, you got your family, you got your job, so whatever extra time you get, you know, how to use that. And I try to do this, but now by some reason by taking it with you, this course, in a different mood, this is so special. All the devotees that are here now, they're getting a real special treat because this is going to fortify them as they move forward. I can see that because I'm excited. I just wanted to say that, you know, I never did this, and now that I'm doing it, oh my God, it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you, Prabhu. Yes. Yeah, it's sometimes, and the thing is, this is the way it works. When we keep reading Prabhupada's books, our heart purifies. And then from that very same heart comes Dainya. Dainya is humility. And Prema. Prema is love. Because I have been introspecting and realized that's why I just love Bhakti Vinod Thakur's poems. When we hear Bhakti Vinod Thakur's poem, just imagine a pure devotee of that teacher of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And he's writing poems as if he's the worst of all. Where is that humility coming from? All that is coming from introspection and just looking deep inside, and just that's what they're doing. And that's a true mark of deserving respect. Yes, we offer respect to people who are elder to us, probably somebody who's a sannyasi, who has more knowledge probably. But these all are secondary. The more important thing is that through that reading, through that hearing, how much of Dainya and Prema has come into our heart. That's the true marker of progress and spiritual growth. Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Okay, so we're doing the summary. That's the summary. It's the word that comes out of his trap. So the first 9 verses, Krishna is going to talk about the 3 modes. We've already talked about it, what those 3 modes are and everything. Then in the next 4 verses, he's going to say how these modes are competing with each other the whole time. And we have always noticed this within us. During a single day itself, sometimes I'm in ignorance, sometimes in goodness, sometimes in passion, right? So, like for example, passion sometimes confuses us. And sometimes it invokes qualities of greed, anger within us, frustration. Similarly, ignorance, sometimes that can bring laziness in us. That can happen within the same day. So there's a race for prominence amongst these 3 modes. And then 14 to 18, Krishna will talk about actions in the modes. Right? So as we know that reincarnation is a process by which a soul receives a new body on the basis of the activities performed in the present day, in the present body. That's how we'll receive our next body. So all are a result of the decisions we make. And the decisions we make are based on the modes which we are being influenced by. So that Krishna will talk about that. And to the last part of it, 19 to 27, there will be a description. Through these various descriptions that we read earlier in the chapter, we can understand what combination of modes we are personally affected by. And the chapter will end by explaining the ideal state for that ensures a successful human life. Right? So it'll tell us how even the goodness is progressive, but still it's binding. It's still under the influence of the laws of karma. So then Krishna will explain the character of a perfected transcendentalist who enjoyed nectar in this life itself. So those are the 4 sections that we will be going through. And now let's go to the chapter. So the first verse, Krishna is saying, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Again, I shall declare to you this supreme wisdom, the best of all knowledge, knowing which all the sages have attained supreme perfection." So Krishna has not talked about the modes of material nature before. Okay, that's why he's saying that this is the best of all knowledge and this is supreme wisdom, and he's talking about sages. So he has talked about the conclusion of material nature, right? I mentioned 7:14 to you, and also briefly in 13th chapter also. He talked about how devotional service has been talked about, which is the goal of conclusion of modes of material nature. So technically, this knowledge has not been spoken. But in terms of the conclusive action, the plan, the knowledge, that has already been spoken. So, and he's talking about Munyo. So Munyo is the Munis, he's saying. Muniya Sarve. So he's talking about sages also here. So Muniya Sarve, because a devotee does not need this philosophical analytical understanding. Okay. But then munis who practice devotional service is being talked here. Right? So the 13 to 18 chapter is teaching jnana level to bhakti level. How does it jnana takes us to bhakti? So generally people who are not yet on the level of a devotee, and so they can be progressed towards devotional practice by hearing these chapters, right? Understanding the potency of bhakti intellectually. And then a time comes when one recognizes that bhakti is the best means to gain liberation from modes of nature. We have talked about those 4 ways by which one approaches Krishna, right? Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about in his book, Chaitanya Manjusha. I think so. I think that's the name, yes. There's fear at the bottom, then there is desire, duty, and love. Okay. Similarly, people may approach different processes of devotional service, not necessarily out of love, but just by duty and knowledge. So Krishna is trying to bring everybody to the position of a loving devotional service. Okay. So now somebody can ask here that Krishna is saying it's superior than others, right? So if Krishna has spoken this earlier, how can it be superior to what has been given earlier? So if it is superior than earlier, how can it be spoken again, right? So he has spoken about bhakti before, therefore it is being spoken again, right? So again, because he's saying again, so that means so somebody's asking, okay, what does this again mean? Again means that he's already talked about bhakti in the past. So now he's going to tell about that again. So that is why he's saying again, he's using the word again. But because he has spoken many types of knowledge, this is better than all. That is why he's saying the best of knowledge, right? So previously Krishna has given dhyana, jnana, karma, and bhakti, but bhakti is the highest. So that's what he's saying. So that again means I have already talked about in the past, and the best because I have talked about many different kinds of knowledge, and this is the best out of it. That's what Krishna means of using this phrase again, word again. Okay. If one understands this chapter through the process of philosophical speculation, he will come to an understanding of devotional service, right? So that's what he's saying. So if the person he progresses on the path of jnana, the goal will be devotional service. Second verse. By becoming fixed in this knowledge, one can attain to the transcendental nature like my own. Thus established, one is not born at the time of creation or disturbed at the time of dissolution. So message of Krishna is also what we can take shelter of. Philosophy is not to be approached merely for analysis from a controlling perspective. Okay. When he says nature as his own, means we want to take shelter of him from the intellectual point also. So we are using everything in Krishna's service, whether it's my intellect, whether it's my emotion, everything, knowledge, right? So, but then we don't, by being fixed in knowledge doesn't mean that we become arrogant. That's not beneficial. It means we want to learn, move forward, and attain love for Krishna. That's what fixed means. Okay? So the goal of memorizing verses is not to be just enamored by that. No, the goal of memorizing verses and Shastra is that it can help us always think about Krishna. Right? So our goal is not to conquer Krishna with jnana, but be conquered by Krishna's love. And we want to offer ourselves to him entirely. And one of those ways could be knowledge, by immersing ourselves in knowledge. Right? So one way of taking shelter of Krishna can also be by immersing ourselves in knowledge. But if we use our spiritual knowledge as an ornament for my ego, we don't get much benefit out of it. So then it's of no use. So Bhagavad Gita is giving us a very commonsensical knowledge that how we become implicated in this material world by material consciousness. the way we look at it, the philosophies that we have, the attitude that we have. And when these with this consciousness and the related activities, they are out of alignment with our highest potential and nature, then they lead us into ways that are very frustrating for us, or they lead us to a destination that is very frustrating for us. Okay. So, the word dharma, the word dharma is coming here, sadharmayam, same nature. So Krishna is saying, sadharmayam, you become like my nature. So dharma is here is used as nature. But then, is that? So the word dharma can be used in different ways, in different places. So I mentioned other words, there are other such words also, Atma, Brahman. These words are used interchangeably for many things. So you have to be cautious when you are reading any verse. Be careful that you fully understand the meaning of that usage there. Right? Okay. Then let's see what Prabhupada is saying. One who thus develops the spiritual qualities is not affected either by creation or by the destruction of the material world. So, as we explained that in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that first of all, it's a lump of matter. Okay. And then then the creation happens, right? The whole energy, the Mahatattva as it's called, is agitated by the three gunas, and then they get divided into 24 elements, and then there is interaction of the uh, of the living entity with those. So creation and dissolution, what it means is that creation means that everything goes back into that Mahatattva. Everything becomes unmanifest, but it stays as a lump of matter. All of us as living entities, we also, if our constitutional truth has not been, if we have not yet realized our constitutional truth, we also go back and merge with the Mahatattva, and we stay there. When the creation happens, again the Mahatattva manifests itself. We as the living entities again come back to the material world, and we are again reminded by our Paramatma, the super soul sitting in our heart, Prem Dham, this is what you wanted in the last life. Here you have it. So creation and dissolution. So, but then once we have understood our constitutional position, we will never be affected by the creation and destruction, because we will be out of this material world. That's what it means by creation and destruction. The total material substance called Brahman is the source of birth, and it is that Brahman that I impregnate, making possible the births of all living beings, O son of Bharata. So first, but that the word Brahman is being used here. Here the word Brahman is referring to the material substance, total material substance. Whereas in the chapter 8 chapter, we read the verse Akshara Parama Brahmam Subhava Adhyatma Uchyate Bhut Bhava Udbhava Karo Visarga Karma Sangita. There the word Brahman was referring to living entity. Then towards the end of this chapter, Krishna will use this word again. Brahmano hi Pratishṭa-dohaṁ, he'll say. He'll say that I am the basis of the Brahman. There he's referring to Brahman as the Brahma Jyoti. Right? But here he's referring it to as material nature. Mama Yonir Mahad Brahma. So he's talking about that. So once again, being careful about the usage of some words which can be interchangeably used for different purposes. It doesn't refer to spiritual reality, only material reality, the word Brahman here. So the word Mahad Brahma, Mahad Brahma, it refers to the womb, how different beings acquire different forms, right? Making possible the birth of all living beings. So we have a spiritual core and we have a a material covering. We function through this material covering. Therefore, this material covering is also important. It defines how we will act. Birds will fly, fishes will swim, but the birds cannot go into the water and start swimming. That's their nature. So similarly, I, as a living entity, get entangled in different bodies. But the question that Krishna is answering here is that, how do I get that body? By the particular nature or by our particular focus. Right? So that's what Krishna is saying. He's saying that making possible the birth of all living beings. So he's not necessarily talking about karma here, but he's just giving us a basic principle. We determine our body not by a conscious choice, but by our actions. Okay, we just define our body, and then our body determines us. How will we go forward? Like a bird's body, we behave that way. Soul has to behave that way. So Brahma is womb, is the material nature, where Krishna is giving the seed. So now Krishna is telling us right from the beginning of creation. Right? So he plays a vital role there. All the souls are his energy. Eko Bhausham. So yes, so that's the essence Krishna is giving here.
Yeah, Haribol?
Haribol, Prabhu.
Yeah, this was bothering me this week until you open your big mouth. Now I understand what it means. Brahman. I was saying, well, okay, what is the Brahman now? Because I get confused, and I just wrote down the Brahmans you were explaining, because I was confused. What do you mean? What is the Brahman there? What is it doing? What is it? And there's other words too I've noticed. I'm trying to think one right now. Is it Atma?
Atma, yes.
That has a lot of meanings too.
Yes, true.
So understanding it, and I was trying to think, I sort of understood it after I read the purport, because Prabhupada explains how something goes down and something is happening here. But yeah, this is confusing, this Brahman thing. Why? Krishna could have made it easier on me.
Yeah.
Because that is a little confusing.
It is confusing, yes, Prabhu. That is why it's important that we know what the meaning is in this particular context. It's very important for us. I did a few years ago, I wrote it down very specifically on a piece of paper so that I don't get confused. That, hey, in this verse, Krishna means this. In this verse, he means this. In this verse, he means this. I wrote it down so that I never get confused about it anymore.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yes, so we are brought into this material world, but then what is it because of which we are in this material world, right? So yes, so I think Prabhupada is going to talk about that in the purport. Let me see if I can find that. Might be in this purport. This one is Prabhupada gives this brilliant example here. This is a scorpion that he's talking about. He says it's the, what do you call it? Tandula Vrishchik Nyaya. There are many Nyayas, laws that Prabhupada talks about across his books. So what he's saying is that the scorpions lay its eggs in the pile of rice, and sometimes it is said that the scorpion is born out of rice, but the rice is not the cause of the scorpion. Similarly, material nature is not the cause of birth of the living entities. The seed is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they only seem to come out as products of material nature. So sometimes some people say, "Oh yes, you are being born from a mother, and you're coming from matter, and but the actual source is that we are coming from Krishna. Mamaivamsho Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We are part and parcels of Krishna. So although it appears as if life has come from matter, no. The life has come from our Supreme Father, Supreme Mother. Matter is just a route where consciousness manifests. It's not the source of it. Okay?
So
You muted yourself, Prabhu? Yep.
The rice is the parents.
Yes, you're right. The rice. No. So
because Krishna is the scorpion.
Yeah. Or you can say the rice is more like the material energy, material nature. Yeah. You can say that also.
Like you just said, we came out of our parents. No, we didn't. We came from Krishna.
From Krishna. Yes.
So Krishna's like the scorpion who goes into and it appears that it comes out of the rice, which is the parents, but it's not really.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yes, that's the way to look at it.
None of that's the cause. There's only one cause right there.
There's only one cause. Yeah. Krishna.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's the first time I ever really realized it too. You just said that. The point about it's not even the parents. It's Krishna says it right there. I gave it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. 4th verse 4. It should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material nature, and that I am the seed-giving father. Okay. So he uses a word here, sambhavanti. I think earlier he used sambhava also in this last word, sambhava. So the word sambhava means the possibility, and sambhavanti means they appear. So but there's a difference in the way the word's being used. Focus is different, right? So he's saying I'm the seed-giving father. In the last verse, Krishna was saying that I impregnate and make things possible. So it might sound both these verses are similar in nature, but then in the focus is different. Here it's Sarvyonishu, right? In the previous verse just brought Krishna as a factor in the whole thing. There it is Mama Yoni, right? Here it is said that all are brought to life by Krishna, right? So I can say that, okay, Pfizer manufactured the vaccine to cure COVID, right? And later we can say that all living beings were saved by the vaccine, which was given by AZ. So it's slightly a different way of saying the focus is different. In the first way, when I say that, Pfizer makes a vaccine, so that the Pfizer is the important part. But later on, when I say that all living beings were saved by the vaccine, which was made by Pfizer, then the vaccine becomes the important thing. So it's a difference of focus, what Krishna is highlighting here, right? So material nature is like mother, and Krishna is like father. They both bring about creation. And earlier, when he was talking about the Brahman, he was talking at the time of creation, right? So Krishna is going to go very soon. He'll be going into the intricacies of material modes. But before he goes into those details, he wants to define his relationship. Is he a teacher? Just a teacher telling me about modes of nature? No. He's the source. And he has mentioned that he's the source many times earlier. Okay. Who remembers verses which say Krishna is the source from Bhagavad Gita for 20 points? Somebody try something. One of the verses I just quoted a few minutes ago, just to give you a hint. Anybody remembers the 4 verses of Chaturshloki Bhagavad Gita? Nobody remembers Chaturshloki Bhagavad Gita? Chaturshloki Bhagavad Gita, the first verse, Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate. Aham sarvasya prabhavo. I am everything. Then I quoted that verse 7.4. Bhumi rapo nalo vayu kham mano buddhi revacha hankar ityante bhintakar. 7.5. Aparimyamitastu anya prakriti vidhi me param. Jiva Bhuta Mahabaho Yedam Dharate Jagat. So all he said that both the matter and spirit are his energies. So Krishna is not just a teacher of Bhagavad Gita, he is the source of everything. That's where all the different 1,000 versions of Bhagavad Gita made a mistake. They tried to put Krishna, somebody tried to put Krishna as a mystic, somebody tried to put Krishna as a management guru, somebody tried to put him as a war expert, somebody tried to put him as just a face to the actual God. But only in this Bhagavad Gita we understand, no, Krishna is all in all. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Nadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karana. The first verse of Brahma Samhita. So yeah. So he's specifically saying that in the process of souls existing in material existence, he is the source. He is the source of all species. So to understand a child, we need to know the mother. So in the so in the difference between us humans and other species is not that they have a different covering. It's just a difference differs in the thickness of covering. Where's that verse? The third chapter we had a verse, right? Dhumena Varta Vahinis Yatho Darsho Malenacha Yatha Vena Vartas. I'm forgetting that verse. No, not coming to me. But there are different levels of thickness that was being talked about. The smoke covering the fire, the womb covering the embryo, and there was another one I forgot. So yeah, so there are different levels of covering. So, but then Krishna is very inclusive. He's saying Sarvayonishu, everybody, not just human beings, everybody is covered. Right? This is against the Christian ideology, which says that, oh, souls are created only during union. Right? But here Krishna is saying, Aham Bija Pradapita. I'm the seed-giving father. It's not like, oh, only when a male and female come together that the creation happens. No, you're not the creator. I am the creator. Right? So that's the way to understand this verse. There are a lot of living entities, but there is one supreme who is taking care of all those living entities. Let's see what's next. 5. Material nature consists of 3 modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, O mighty armed Arjun, he becomes conditioned by these modes. So now the description of modes will begin. We'll discuss how modes bind the soul. 3 modes are born from material nature. Mahabaho. Krishna is calling Arjun Mahabaho here. So he's saying you are very strong, you are very powerful, but you are also bound, Arjun. Soul has become bound to the body. Right? They bind up the indestructible Jiva, who is actually without any change, who is situated in a body made from the gunas. They bind him, the gunas bind him with their quality of illusory happiness and distress, which are accepted by the Jiva without understanding their true nature. That's it. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, these modes are these subtle forces that they shape the interaction between gross matter and the spiritual life. And we have to come to the mode of goodness. So these are subtle forces. Modes are subtle forces. Haribol, Prabhu.
So this is really, I mean, okay, what you just said, you gotta say that again. I mean, you said the 3 modes that the soul is bound to material and its forces in a point that we don't even understand.
Yeah.
And nobody understands this. Nobody even has a clue. I mean, this is very amazing area that no one has any idea, no scope of that. You know, all we do is, you know, we see someone has a big belly and we know there was some activity going on,
Yeah.
you know, and then the person comes out and whatever happens, we have no idea what really happened there, that a soul got bound at this point, at that point. There's bound to the material nature, and then this comes the source of all misconception until someone puts a flashlight on it all.
Yeah.
A torchlight of knowledge. I mean, this is really, we got to take, this is where you got to slow down and reflect. You know what you just said, that's a mouthful, and this didn't happen in one sloka here. It's being revealed here in one sloka, but I went through 8,400,000 species of light to get to this point, to see that what was confused, what tripped me out here. You know, this is real heavy.
This is heavy.
But it's beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. So, and that's what happens, you know, when we come to this world. What's the first thing that happens to us? We are put into this ignorance. You know, there's this, which was that verse? It's in a, I think let me see if I can find that verse. There's a verse which Brahma is speaking in the 3rd canto.
Yeah, Prabhu,
Yes, go ahead,
right?
Mati.
Yeah, they had actually showed a nice video this yesterday in regards to the birth, how you know, from the conception all the way till the baby comes out. As soon as the baby comes out, in the womb, the baby knows Krishna is there, but as soon as the baby comes out, he basically gets hit by Maya and forgets everything, you know.
Yeah, that's what it happens, and that's the way this material world is designed. It is to cover us into ignorance the moment we come into this.
Sorry, Prabhuji, what were you saying?
I was saying that that's the way this world has been designed by Brahma. You know, that it covers us in ignorance.
Yeah.
It starts from you know, where we misuse our independence, and you know, that's the first thing, right? And then after that, because I wanted to misuse, then it further takes me into more ignorance as we move forward. Tamas, tama, andhatama, so and so forth. There are multiple levels of that ignorance. So yeah, because I chose it at the end of the day, that's why I'm in here. Yeah, so now Krishna started to talk about the different modes here. So let's see now. I think now from next verse, Krishna will start talking about the qualities of those three. Oh no, yeah, I think I had something I wanted to bring out. What was that? Give me one second. Yes, so I just wanted to show you this. I have made a slide. I've shared this with all of you in the chat and also in it. So there is 14, 17, and 18 is where Krishna is going to elaborate about these three gunas. 14th chapter, he's going to talk about these four things: binding force, symptoms, destination at death, results of action. When we come to 17, he'll be more specific. How do people worship in the modes? What kind of foods they eat, sacrifice, austerity, charity. Further on in 18, he'll go more subtle: renunciation, knowledge in those three modes, action, determination, happiness. So all these things. So Krishna is going to go in depth in these three modes. So I'll just share this with you. So from 6th to 8th verse, he's going to talk about the binding forces. How does it bind us, and what kind of an outcome it gives us? So yes. So now he's going to start talking about the goodness one. 6th is goodness. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode becomes conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. Okay, so yes, so he's starting to talk about the mode of goodness. So one who is in the mode of goodness is a seeker of knowledge, seeker of understanding, seeker of wisdom. One, he understands that actions have consequences and he should choose properly. One doesn't act in sinful ways and it thus becomes free from sin. So illumination leads to jnana. Sinful reactions come when you do vikarma, right? But here the person in the mode of goodness is doing good karma. And for this, he will reap benefits. He'll go to heavens. We read in the 9th chapter, Traividyamam somapaput papa yagyarištva swargatim prapyante. Right? So, but then when the piety has been utilized, he comes back to this material world, right? So Prabhupada, I think in this verse, he'll give example of is it here? I don't know. I can't find. There's I think he talks about shackles, gold shackles and iron shackles. They both are shackles. So what happens is that once we have knowledge in the mode of goodness, we become proud of our knowledge, right? And we improve our living condition, and we feel happy. And this bounds us to the mode of goodness. So this sense of advanced happiness is also very binding for us, right? So we keep coming back to this material world again and again. So yeah, it's good to have been a mode of goodness, but then mode of goodness is also binding. So we have to even transcend that. That's what Krishna is mentioning, and Prabhupada is explaining us. So gold shackles or iron shackles, in both we are bound, and by devotional service we get freed from the shackles completely. That's what the way to understand.
Okay, excuse me. You
Yes.
said 14, 15, 16, right? So this 14 right now we're going to hear what about the modes? What are the modes being?
6 to 8. This is verse 6 to 8 from.
But is this in the 14th chapter? But you were
Yes.
just saying 14th chapter, 15th chapter.
So 14th, 17, and 18, these 3 chapters, Krishna talks in detail about the modes.
14, 17, 18. So it's just more detail.
More details, different aspects. Yes, Prabhu.
Okay.
So in this chapter now, from verse 6 to verse 8, Krishna is going to talk about the binding force of different modes. So we're seeing that in the mode of goodness, what is binding? That knowledge becomes binding. That sense of happiness becomes binding for that person. That becomes a shackle for that person. Because he thinks, oh, I'm so intelligent. Oh, see, my tastes are so refined. And so and there's some sort of happiness there. And that's also very binding for that person.
Creativity.
Yeah, creativity, you can say, yes. Become an artist, Prabhupada saying, right? Scientists, philosophers, those kind of people, poets, Prabhupada mentions them. So all of them they're also entangled, right? So that's the binding force for people in the mode of goodness. Similarly, the binding force for the people in the mode of passion is the second one that's being talked about. Bound to material fruitive action. Let's read the whole verse. The mode of passion is born of unlimited desires and longings, O son of Kunti, and because of this, the embodied living entity is bound to material fruitive activities. So raga, the word is used as raga, means attachment. So mode of passion brings attachment. So attachment for what one has, right? So there is attachment to the things I have, and there is a desire for things that I don't have in passion, right? For example, I'm attached to my car, but then I also have a desire to have other cars. Probably, I want a Mercedes Benz or a BMW. I have that desire, right? So, so that's the binding force of passion, right? Unlimited desires and longings, and then binding to the material fruitive So here Prabhupada is giving this explanation. A man in the mode of passion wants some honor in the society or in the nation, and he wants to have a happy family, nice children, wife, and house. These are the products of mode of passion. As long as one is hankering after this, he has to work very hard. So there is this, what is binding to that person? The desire of honor, happy family, happy, have good children, good wife, good house, so forth. That's binding for that person.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
So, Prabhuji, then all the grahast means I would not say all the grahastas, but mostly the grahastas, it's a challenge for them, right? Definitely, they want their children to be happy. They work toward it, make their family happy, because that is also a part of your prescribed duty as a family person, right?
Mhm.
So that means a grahasta is always, even though not trying to be, but he indulged in a mode of passion.
Yes. So see, when you say the word grahastha, the grahastha ashram technically has to be, this is not for a grahastha ashram person, because an ashrama means where there is no shrama, there is no hard work, right? Shrama means work, ashrama means there is no hard work. A person who's properly living a grahastha ashram, he's not going to be, yes, he's living for his, he's making a living, he's paying his mortgages, she's also taking care, whatever the work she's doing or he's doing, whatever they're doing it properly. But then they know the bigger goal also. Just like Prabhupada mentions this, right? That we all are grahasthashrams, but then we are consciously trying to inculcate bhakti in our lives. So we are living grahasthashram. The ones that are being talked about here are graha medhis. Graha medhis are the one who are misusing that that part of the society, grahasthashram, the ashrama. So that's the people who have been talked about here. There is hankering after these things. Yes, we are living all these, but we don't have intense hankering for those things. Right? Prabhupada says this, right? The whole world is more or less in a mode of passion. But as devotees, we are very consciously trying to live in this grahasthashram, but still be connected to Krishna. So this is not necessarily for us. But in your point, grahasthashram is a very tough position to be in, because a brahmachari and a sannyasi, they're told to just forget everything. Hey, no connection, detachment, complete detachment. We here cannot be completely detached also, neither we are being asked not to be attached also. So grahasthashram is a very tough place to be in. It's like we are using our skills, learning from our bhakti in our real life scenarios 24/7. That's what you're doing. And as long as you're doing that, you are not in this mode. This is not what is, you're not being referred to out here.
Got it. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for clarifying this. Thank you.
You're welcome. We don't have that hankering. We know we are in this position. I have to live in this position. I have to take care of my family, pay my mortgages. But I know that the bigger picture is there. That I am an individual soul. This body is merely been given to me because of my past karma, and I'm just living through my karmas, trying to get over with them. While the time I try my level best to do bhakti. That's what our attitude. Okay. So, okay, yes. Then the eighth one is the ignorance part. So this part brings about madness, indolence, and sleep, which bind the conditioned soul. Right? So all living beings are deluding all living beings by producing madness, laziness, and sleep. So here it's saying that mode of darkness, born of ignorance, is a delusion of all embodied living entities. This is a very, I don't know, very interesting way of saying it. Mode of darkness, which is the mode of ignorance, is born of ignorance. That's a very good way of putting it. So the reason that Krishna is mentioning it this way is that he's saying that this is a self-perpetuating cycle. It feeds itself. First there is ignorance, and when we act based on this ignorance, we aggravate the influence of ignorance. So we further complicate our life. Then we go into deeper ignorance, right? For example, if I get in a trouble, I start drinking alcohol, right? So thinking that alcohol will free me from my problems. But no, actually it further increases my mode of ignorance. So there's no limit to the extent that addiction can go, right? I might go ahead and steal because of my addiction, or kill somebody because of my addiction. So that's what it means, that mode of ignorance is born from mode of ignorance. Right? So it binds all living beings. So Krishna is saying that it binds all embodied living entities. Right? So, for example, that everybody has to sleep. Right? That's what. So first of all, the bodily conception is ignorance, right? So that's what it means, that it binds. It provides a sense of a delusion to all living entities. But then when a devotees, they can also be in the same state, like even devotees sleep. But then devotees can also be Krishna conscious while sleeping. So there is a necessary contact with mode of ignorance, but there is no unnecessary aggravation of that mode of ignorance. Right? I was giving the example that somebody starts drinking because they fell in trouble. Right? So, but then devotees understand that, oh, this trouble is coming to me because of my past karma, and they don't worsen it. They don't create ignorance out of ignorance. That's the difference between a devotee and a non-devotee. So that yes, that the delusion is everywhere, but yes, I've got this body, I have to go through it, but then I don't make it worse for myself. So the whole point is that the modes bind us, right? So sleeping is not to be given up, but regulated, right? Yukta hara viharasya, yukta chetasya. Yukta, Krishna says that, 6th chapter. So sleeping is not the problem. Oversleeping is a way of psychological escape to avoid responsibilities of life, right? So when sleep becomes a hideout from life's challenges, we get more into the bondage of illusion. So yeah, so that's the way to understand. Yes, it's starting from illusion, but as a devotee, I'm not taking it further into illusion, whereas a non-devotee takes it further into illusion. That's the way to understand it. Okay. So we are at 8:30. So I'll pause here. And